Hi, Dan. There's been a change. Not gonna lean on me, Tyco. Got a spot that comes in, like, what he did, like, yeah. Yeah, Dan, talk to Tyco. He's got a hurt his fingers. I suspected it might be a small group today, but I wasn't quite expecting a smaller group, but that's fine. We'll be a little quicker meeting. So welcome. And I'm not going to read the announcements because everybody here can read. And and on both sides, please. Especially keep in mind that if you want to be a witness, which is what we're talking about today, you have an opportunity every Friday at noon over near the federal building to hold up a sign saying what exactly we're set up for. And I believe next week, this is really worth saying out loud, there's going to be a leadership gathering, 10 to 4, I think right here. If you're interested in making things happen here in the future, that would be an excellent time to show up and learn what needs to be done. So, always have a lot of papers with me. Our opening words this morning are called to worship, depending on. Can I move this, Andy? Is this going to be a disaster? These are from Axel German. We come here on Sundays to think about what is really important to us. We think about the people we love. We come here to maybe find out some new things we didn't know before, or maybe remember things we knew but had forgotten. We come here also to think about the difficult things, about things that make us sad or angry, of things that confuse us, and we try to make sense of them. We come here to see old friends and to make new ones, to sing songs and listen to stories. We come to have a good time, a special time together. Will somebody take on the chalice lighting duties, the physical lighting of the chalice? As you probably all know, Unitarian Universalism isn't famous for our rituals, but this is one that we're very vehement about. And the light, of course, symbolizes millions of things. We light this chalice today as a symbol of the creativity of our liberal faith, the creativity to explore new avenues of religious insight, the creativity to develop a caring community, the creativity to envision a world of peace and freedom. So we're going to sing our community hymn today. Tycho's had a little finger accident, we had to make a few changes, but we will be singing 299, the channel, the what, no? I'm sorry, you changed that one too?
No, we didn't. It's just not what you requested.
It's what?
It's supposed to be 298. It's right next.
Oh, okay. I'm so confused. So we changed both. Yes, we're gonna sing, but we changed. Tycho had a little accident with one of his fingers, so we have to change.
Oh, no.
So it's gonna be nothing tragic. He's not gonna die or anything. But, okay, so it's waiting on my senses.
Yes.
298. Okay, so which I didn't realize we were changing both.
And I'll do the last two.
All right, stand as you're able and body your spirit.
We have 5 verses, is that right? There are extra verses over on the
Why not?
second page. So 5 verses.
I'll do the last two bars. The third one.
Okay, I have pressed Marty Fino into service to read. We always have a time for all ages, whether we have young people here or not, and this is one of my favorite stories from my childhood, and I think eventually you might see how it sort of ties into the theme today. Thank you.
Okay, so this morning we have The Little Red Hen, written by Paul Galdone. And I have to say, it's a little intimidating to have to do this, considering how well Wendy Franger does these stories.
Oh, well, don't be competitive.
Okay.
Agree.
Once upon a time, a cat and a dog and a mouse and a little red hen all lived together in a cozy little house. Like to sleep all day on the soft couch. The dog liked to nap all day on the sunny back porch. And the mouse liked to snooze all day in the warm chair by the fireside. So the little red hen had to do all the housework. She cooked the meals and washed the dishes and made the beds. She swept the floor and washed the windows and mended the clothes. Busy little hen. She raked the leaves and mowed the grass and hoed the garden. One day when she was hoeing the garden, she found some grains of wheat. "Who will plant this wheat?" cried the little red hen. "Not I," said the cat. "Not I," said the dog. And "not I," said the mouse. "Then I will," said the little red hen, and she did. Each morning, the little red hen watered the wheat and pulled the weeds. Soon the wheat pushed through the ground and began to grow tall. You know where this is going, don't you? When the wheat was ripe, the little red hen asked, "Who will cut the wheat?" "Not I," said the cat. "Not I," said the dog. And "not I," said the mouse. "Then I will," said the little red hen, and she did. When the wheat was all cut, the little red hen asked, "Now, who will take this wheat to the mill to be ground into flour?" "Not I," said the cat. "Not I," said the dog. And "not I," said the mouse. The little red hen then returned from the mill carrying a small bag of fine white flour. "Who will make a cake from this fine white flour?" asked the little red hen. "Not I," said the cat. And "not I," said the dog. And last but not least, "not I," said the mouse. "Then I will," said the little red hen, and she did. She gathered sticks and made a fire in the stove. Then she took milk and sugar and eggs and butter and mixed them in a big bowl with the fine white flour. When the oven was hot, she poured the cake batter into a shining pan and put it into the oven. Soon a delicious smell filled the cozy little house. The cat got off the soft couch and strolled into the kitchen. The dog got up from the sunny back porch and came into the kitchen. The mouse jumped down from his warm chair and scampered into the kitchen. The little red hen was just taking a beautiful cake out of the oven. "Who will eat this cake?" asked the little red hen. "I will," cried the cat. "I will," cried the dog. And "I will," cried the mouse. But the little red hen said, "All by myself I planted the wheat. I tended the wheat. I cut the wheat. I took the wheat to the mill to be ground into flour. All by myself I gathered the sticks. I built the fire. I mixed the cake. And all by myself I'm going to eat it." And so she did, to the very last crumb. After that, whenever there was work to be done, the little red hen had 3 very eager helpers.
Everybody wants to get in on the party, right? Okay. Okay, as is customary in more or less any religious group anywhere, now is the time for us to take up our offering to keep this place open at all times, like today. You know, some places might close up on a day that thought it was gonna, but we are always here on a day that we say we're going to be, sometimes more formal and sometimes less formal. Who would like to take these around? Also, in here, you'll find something that you can write on if you have a joy, concern, grief, gratitude, anything that you would like to see lifted up to the group. And Tycho's going to play some stuff for us. Gail said she didn't find any written things to lift up, but if anybody just wants to share something off the cuff, we can do that as well. Anybody has something weighing heavy or not heavy on your heart today? No? Oh, sure.
We have the joy of a friend visiting today. He'll be with us several days. Some of you know Blake Shen.
Great.
He lives in Austria and he's in Mississippi visiting his mother. And is taking a swing up to visit you.
Is that the young man that used to tune in sometimes on long distance ones? Okay, yes, I remember him during COVID, yeah. Okay, very good. Anyone else? Robert? This is a friend of mine, incidentally. He might also want to be a presenter here someday, but.
Hey, Gail, because she's a very dear friend and she performed the services for my husband 9 years ago.
Oh, that's, yes, Will.
And of course, I never could forget that. She performed the services the way I wanted, with my words, because I'm a very free and open person. And ever since then, I've just been a devoted follower. And she was gonna preach today, so I came to hear her.
We love her too.
Right. I do love having a devoted follower. That's it ties in a way to what we're going to talk about today. Okay, I'm attached to I'm sorry, go ahead.
I've been, read the news and it was, well, satisfying, I guess, to find out that Janine Pirro admitted that there was no vandalism with the reflecting pool.
Wow.
And that the person who was accused of a felony was dismissed. And that was
Oh, I love it.
really a good thing to hear. I mean, there's so many other things that are going on that one, and I understand that it upset our president to hear that.
Mm, mm. I think just about everything upsets him, don't you think? But
And another issue was, it really bothered me to hear that Tim Waltz was accused of
yeah.
getting into the water system, municipal water system in Minnesota. I mean, like that was ridiculous. And there were supposedly 7 states that had some municipal water disruptions, and the
Dear.
likely, well, it's investigating whether it is Iran who did it, but it just was ridiculous to try to blame that.
Oh, because it's Minnesota. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, the blue states are guilty of everything.
And particularly, Tim Walz, because his person was elevated when he became the nominee for vice president.
Right.
Goodness.
We're certainly living in strange times. Thank you. Anybody else? So I'm a fan. I'm happy to see that Sarah uses them occasionally too, Reverend Sarah, but a lot of beauty churches don't do a lot of responsive readings, but I find some of them really do speak to us. This one is not apparently set up as a responsive reading 474 unto the Church Universal, but how about if we just do it that way anyway? I don't think anybody will report us or anything. I will read the first piece and then you all respond each time. Unto the Church Universal, which is the depository of all ancient wisdom and the school of all modern thought. Which abjures all that separates and divides, and always magnifies all that unifies and brings peace. And which shall make of all sects, classes, nations, and races one global community. And let's say this together. We pledge the allegiance of our hands and hearts. I've always really liked that one. Okay. My sermon reading is from a publication called Parabola, the magazine of myth and tradition, which I regret to say after about 50 years of publication has ceased publishing. It was never what you would call a bestseller kind of thing, but it had attracted some of the great ethical, religious, and theological minds and psychologists and others of our times. And I think it's a negative and sad commentary that after 50 years, this is when it stopped, because I think a lot of us are no longer that interested in meaning and maybe tradition. This is from they take a theme for every publication, and the witness was the theme for this one. So I'm going to read a piece called "The Witness Within" as our sermon reading. Webster, this is Andy. I hope I'm not going to hard for me to be sort of biting on this. Webster lists several definitions. I'm sorry, this is written by Padma Pereira. Webster lists several definitions of both the noun and the verb witness, but my own interests focus on the basically human, one who is cognizant by direct experience. Each of us, after all, is instantly captivated by direct experience. Each of us has an abiding witness within both the conscious and the unconscious levels of experience. By conscious, I mean consciousness of oneself, knowing that you know, seeing that you see. And by the unconscious, I mean a deeper level beyond that. Finally, both are equally valid parts of our human experience. Whether at conscious or unconscious levels, we find here a context that dispenses with the Latin tag, testis unus, testis nullus. A single witness is no witness. My point is exactly the opposite. Our sole inner witness is our only humanly enduring witness. In the 2nd century, Polybus said, "There is no witness so dreadful, no accuser so terrible as the conscience that dwells in the heart of every person." Time, but that is only one aspect of true, but that is only one aspect of many. Considering the conscious side of our witness first, I will touch upon some of its other and definitely more varied layers and ramifications. By beginning with the obvious, to be a witness, you have to be present. Presence is an essential ingredient here, yes, and with it comes its corollaries, a measure of observation, sight, insight, a good ear, perhaps a sense of touch or smell, an intimation, as in the case of Helen Keller, of the trapped but sentient person awakening within, the human ability to feel and be fallible, intelligence, or at least intelligence enough to make the link between cause and effect, a texture and its source, etc. The will or lack of will to do this right of our own presumably functioning selves when one is not aphasic or smitten with amnesia, or by extension, the time and the place where our conscious witness first surfaced. My mother's first memory is the earliest of any that I heard about. She remembers being put to sleep as a baby in a cradle, being hung from a wooden frame. As the cradle was swung, she saw the flexible shadow of that frame go back and forth, back and forth. Shape and movement had come into her ken. So, let's see, somehow we got the written, she skipped somehow. I have sent a correction to Sue, and somehow she skipped over the sermon part, but there will be a sermon. And it is called Bearing Witness. It's my fault, probably. I sent the order of service in two different pieces. So a lot of you have, of course, dealt with myself, with Gail Stratton even longer, and you were here with her. She was going through a lot of her preparatory work to be a minister, and she was, I guess we could say, called to the ministry and to be a witness in a larger level by this group. And one of the requirements of the Unitarian Universalist Association to ever become a minister is that you have to go through something called CPE, or Clinical Pastoral Education. Now, I gather things have changed some over the years as that requirement is being filled. But at the time that I was at Harvard Divinity School, making my first tentative efforts into going into ministry, it was seen as a source of terror by most of the aspirants. I remember hearing first about it sitting in the little coffee shop in Rockefeller Hall on the Harvard campus, and somebody said, well, the whole goal of CPE is to tear you apart and then maybe put you together again. I don't know if that was written into the charter or structure, and apparently it seemed that some CPE places were more difficult than others. But apparently this is not alone as a requirement. I believe almost all of the existing religious groups require something along these lines, probably not the evangelical churches, I don't know. But anyway, I found something in the Episcopal little monthly prayer thing that spoke to this perfectly. They take a minister or a student minister comments every day of the year, really, in this little book that they give out. I kind of wish we had something like that ourselves. Anyway, this is addressing this issue that I just mentioned. They told us chaplaincy is part of seminary. And it's a part of seminary that's kind of like a root canal for the soul. Oh my God, what a wonderful description of it. So one summer, I slipped on a badge and walked into a children's hospital, praying I wouldn't unravel before lunch. And believe me, that would be a valid prayer. In the pediatric wing, I met her, the baby girl in the plexiglass box, eyelids thin as grape skin, heartbeat stuttering on the monitor like a bird's hiccup. Her parents slumped, folded into themselves. I wanted to say something comforting, but all I could offer was my clammy body in the room. Maybe that's all that's ever asked, that you don't bolt. And all arrived, the raw kind, the crackling mystery, the terrible weight of being alive, fragile, and unreasonably loved. The Apostle Paul said you were grafted in, meaning you don't have to quite be a believer. You who Google how to pray at 2 a.m., you who tries to sing a hymn but just weeps, you're stitched into the rootstock. No gold star required. Forget strutting. You kneel, you stammer, you stay. And sometimes, if you're lucky, someone might break out a deck of cards. You sit, you play, and you wouldn't feel the kingdom of God, and their ideas, I would be to say the kingdom of all people is about to close in. So I almost didn't become a minister because I heard things like this, a root canal for the soul. Who wants to sign up for that? Oh my Lord. I got through all of my classwork. I wasn't afraid of doing an internship, but at the time that I was finishing up with my classwork, CPE was required first. And I thought, well, that's it. I guess I'll never be a minister. And I have loans to pay off anyway. So I took a corporate job. And guess what? I was a corporate trainer. And most of the people I was training were young people who were learning how to sell books on the telephone in the golden age of telemarketing, which has long since burned itself out. Well, it turned out, guess what? I was a chaplain there too. I had a big corner office, and there was a constant parade of young people coming in seeking counsel about all sorts of things. So I thought, well, damn, if I'm going to be helping people anyway, I might as well do this damn CPE thing at some point. So that didn't happen for a while. But anyway, I left that job and I went out to Arizona to run a Greenpeace office where, again, I had more young people, some in college, some just drifting around, and I was doing counseling for them. I thought, well, maybe I could do CPE. And I started preaching occasionally at the small UU fellowship there in Flagstaff, Arizona. And eventually they decided they would actually like to help me get through the process and bring me back at some point to really work for them officially for a while. Well, this was breaking all kinds of UUA rules, which all my life I've been a rule breaker, so this is nothing new for me. But, but we brought in a district executive. She met with the church, and we agreed that if I would do CPE before, I could come back and use them as an internship congregation in league with a larger congregation in Phoenix. So I did my internship in Good Samaritan Hospital, a Catholic hospital in downtown Phoenix. And I don't know if I would really describe it as a root canal for the soul, but it was the kind of experience that changes people. Now, I don't know if all CPE experiences include this, but there had been a sudden mass exit of all of the social workers at this church. I suspect something about salary needs. So all of a sudden, those of us in the chaplaincy group were asked not just to have a floor that we used each day for our visits, but we were asked to go to every emergency and be on call for anything that turned up in the hospital. And there were some doozies, gang warfare, victims of that, robberies, people come in with their legs shot up, lots of things. But this is the most memorable, and this is the one that I think most ties into the idea of bearing witness, and also maybe the root canal for the soul. So one night I got the call. I went down to the emergency room, and it wasn't really an emergency room situation, but it was something that the doctor on call thought he couldn't handle alone. And so, well, I'll bring in, a religious person. An immigrant family, it's very timely because, of course, Phoenix always had a lot. An immigrant family from Mexico. This was their situation. The mother had just given birth to a baby that was not doing well, and she was upstairs in a hospital room. The father was in a van in the hospital parking lot with 3 other children and an almost baby, maybe a 1-year-old, who appeared to have stopped breathing. So this is the situation I'm called into. The hysterical father and these 3 solemn little kids crying, and this baby that by the time I got down to the basement floor where this was going on, the baby was definitely not breathing. Well, I had this little kit that they gave me when I started doing chaplaincy work at Good Samaritan. I'm not sure other people had them, but we had a priest on call. And I had been deputized with holy oil. I still have some. I've kept it all these years. And I had Lord's water. And then I had some other indeterminate holy water of some sort, just in case I ran out of the Lord's water. And the doctor just kept looking at me. It was like, well, I can't do anything here. This baby isn't sick. And so the father said, can you baptize him? Well, you know, we don't tend to do a lot of baptizing in UULand per se. We might have something similar, but so I had been taught though what to do. So, well, by gosh, I baptized that baby, that little dead baby. But then we are, the doctor and I are sitting here with this whole family that had no idea what to do. And the father said, what happens next? Well, I said, well, we can take a handprint or a footprint of the baby, because I had been trained in the social worker task, and I had the little kit, and I said, we'll take a little hair. So we put together this little kit so that they could remember this baby. Well, by this time, the kids are hungry. So the doctor said, why don't we go down to the cafeteria and feed these kids? We both had cards that allowed us to get food for free. So we took the whole family down to the cafeteria and we fed them. And we ended up spending the better part of the night with this family, who already, remember, have a possibly critically ill baby and a mother upstairs. Finally, the kids were getting sleepy and they retired back to the van. And the doctor, a fairly young doctor, Hispanic doctor by chance, said to me, I don't know what I would have done if you hadn't been here. And I said, but I didn't do anything. And he said, oh, yes, you know, you were here witnessing to this and taking care of me. I didn't realize that I was doing that. But that was kind of my first introduction, in a way, I guess, to the idea of witnessing in that way and what they call the ministry of presence. How very important it is to just show up, whether at a funeral, a death scene in a hospital, a sick friend, in a church community like ours. So I'm going to tell another quick story that just happened to have turned up not long ago on my Facebook page. I had some great congregants, the Lang family. It was the mother, father, 3 adopted African-American kids, and a grandmother, all showed up at once because there had been something in the paper about our church and about me, and they saw it and they came. Well, our church was in a difficult moment, really a difficult time. We'd had some financial issues. There had been some possible mismanagement of funds. There had been, you know, divisions. There had been a couple of unpleasant congregational meetings where things were said that were hard to take back. And people had left some positions. Well, the Langs showed up within about a month. The daddy, Steve, had taken over the buildings and grounds area. The grandmother had taken over our finances in conjunction with another longtime member. The mother, Laura, had taken over the religious education program as chair of the RE committee. The young adult, well, not young adult, but sort of teenage son, Sean, had single-handedly brought our little teen group together. And the 2 kids, of course, augmented our Sunday school with the younger kids. So this family has always been in my heart, and they have remained. They had left the church by the time I left, so it was not illegal for me to be in touch with them. They had moved to Houston, Texas. And when I next spoke to Laura, I said, well, have you found a congregation in Texas? She said, oh, we've been to 2, but we could tell there's trouble. And I thought, well, you would know because you came in. And they, to the best of my knowledge, very sadly, they had never affiliated out there because I think they felt they did their part at our little congregation. But I did see recently somebody had complimented Laura on something about being a hero. And so I wrote back on her Facebook page. I said, Laura, you and your whole family were always heroes to me, and you always will be because of what you brought to our church at a challenging time. And she said, and I quote, all we did was show up enthusiastically and participate. And I wrote back, that's all that was needed. Show up and participate, show up and be there in a hospital setting, in a congregation. That's the main thing. But of course, we have bigger fish to fry these days. And before I get into the bigger fish that we need to fry, I'm going to talk about a book that I had a little miraculous experience with. So you'll see the title is relevant, So Great a Cloud of Witnesses. And I believe that term surfaced probably in early Christianity when the early disciples were asked to be witnesses, of course, to their teacher, Jesus. Now, he doesn't talk, David Rankin doesn't talk an awful lot directly about that, but he does talk about witnessing in all sorts of ways. Now, sadly, this wonderful book is out of print a long time ago. It was published in like the late 70s. Most of the stories or sermons are pretty dated. I would hesitate to recommend to some people at least to read this book now, because some of the terminology would be considered unpolitically correct. Some of the issues, of course, are somewhat different. But basically, the whole book is about things that he witnessed as a minister and things that he sort of witnessed and helped other people out as they went through something or witnessed it. And on the back, I'll just read you a little bit. It says, it talks about the book itself, and it says, if you were David Rankin, you mix humor, surprises, and personal flamboyance. You meet and you work with Joe Smith, the loser, Joe Smith, the immigrant, Joe Smith, the homosexual, Joe Smith, the activist, Joe Smith, the coward, Joe Smith, the African-American, Joe Smith, the son, and Joe Smith, the disabled person. And again, some of his terms are not really the ones that I just said, because it's a different time. But all of his sermons had something about witnessing. Also, David was kind of unique, well, maybe more unique now than he was then, but he came to us very much as a very committed liberal Christian. Now you can imagine how well that was received in some of our congregations. But he was such a wonderful and persuasive and unique preacher that he kept getting excellent jobs anyway. He was in San Francisco, the big church there for a long time, and then he ended up at something called the Fountain Street Church, and I can't remember one of the cities in Michigan. But primarily, he had a good writing ministry. He published this book. I think there are other collections of his sermons, and he also turned to writing poetry later in life. And he wrote about the spiritual importance of the blues and jazz and things of that nature. But this book probably was my Unitarian Universalist conversion experience. I was at All Souls in Washington, D.C., where I went once in a while. And the minister there, David Eaton, a very, very brilliant but controversial, again, minister. And I went back to talk to him after the service, told him how much I had enjoyed it, and told him I was thinking at that point, I had already applied to Harvard and gotten in, but I wasn't totally sure what I was going to do. And his thing was, he said, you just go up there and watch. You go up there and watch and see what happens. Somebody will either witness to you, or you will witness to them, and you will get your direction. You will figure out what to do. Well, I'm not going to go through the rest of my career. That's not the point of this. But the point is that pretty much everything about ministry is about witnessing. We only have, especially in UU land, where we do not have weekly Bible verses that we use, year after year. We don't have a lectionary. Where pretty much things are left up to the individual minister. And we all bring our training, our CPE, the root canal for the soul. We bring our own internships, wherever that may be. We bring our experience in other UU churches, wherever those were, all very unique and different, because every UU church is amazingly different to every other one. I know Gail's preached in a few. The bigger ones have a whole different set of issues. The middle ones have their issues. All of us have money issues. All of us have lack of volunteer issues. Those are universal, but the individual things are very much unique to each setting. Some people have a lot of new people that are being just sort of factored into the congregation. Some have a whole bunch of people who've been around forever, and we have to keep doing it the same way, which is our way, if you have a lot of those sorts of people. So all what he said to me was just very helpful. So I just kind of kept showing up. And in current times, I'm thinking about the Fed Up Friday. We've been out there, many of us, Gail and Sue and Marty and some others, and I'm sure some others would come if they were good enough health. We go out there and sort of stand or sit for half an hour in the heat. It's not what you'd call a fun experience. People come by, some of them, give us the finger. Some come by and honk their horns in solidarity. And then we just give Sue or whoever back the signs, and we melt into the afternoon. And it can seem silly. And some people make fun of us online or to our faces. But for me, I can't get there all the time, of course. And it's a varying group. Sometimes it's 10 people. Sometimes it's as much as 50 or more. It is a classic case of bearing witness and showing up and just being present. It gives you a sense of who else has similar views that aren't part of our congregation. We tend to think we have some kind of a monopoly, I think, at times on those ideas. But it gives you a sense of solidarity. And it's that sense of solidarity and the presence of others that helped create the civil rights movement, obviously the gay liberation movement. It's pretty much presence is what creates change. It doesn't create change quickly. Sometimes think it's very, very overdue. But that's one of the main things to me is bearing witness to your beliefs, bearing witness to other people. Sometimes just, again, showing up. Another instance, a friend of mine died a few weeks ago, and to my horror, her son had no support group. He had my phone number and a lady named Sylvia Linhoff's phone number, and that was it. He had no relatives. His mother had never wanted to talk about death. And I think this young man has some issues of his own. He doesn't seem like he had a lot of, let's say, social skills. So I'm like, so he calls me and just sort of throws this in my lap. And I said, well, where is she? He said, well, they called the Coleman Funeral Home from the hospital. And I said, well, I guess, have they told you what they can, and he said, well, they told me I need to do a funeral or at least a visitation. I have no idea what to do. I said, well, you call the right person. I said, do you want to have a memorial? I said, well, I don't know who her friends were. And I said, well, that's okay, because I do. So at least I knew her connections. So I did a ton of calling. She had been very much a part of another group that involved her bearing witness, which is the Memory Project that was trying to go back and find families of people who had been unfairly lynched here over the years. And she was very active in many groups. So I called all the groups and sort of more or less, I think, forced some people into coming. And I told them the time and place. I called Griff back and I said, I've alerted as many groups and people individually that I know of, and we just have to go over there and hope they show up. But I said, I will come early. I'm happy to say Gail showed up, Gail Stratton, and some other people, a surprising number. We had finally gotten word to her colleagues at the university where she had been head librarian for research for years. Nobody knew she was even ill. Sylvia and I seemed to be the only people in town who knew that Laura had been seriously ill for almost 4 years. But people did show up and shook Griff's hand, and that's another one of those places where if you hear somebody you know has passed away, you don't know. There could be hundreds of people there and you won't be noticed, but you could be one of a small group. You never know. When you hear somebody is sick, people often don't want to see people, but sometimes you can just show up anyway. I really couldn't figure out how to show up for Laura because she was so vehement and not wanting to be seen. But a lot of people just don't let people know. If you find out, always at least offer to show up. Of course, we have our No Kings protests going on these days. And again, people laugh at us. I even have some family members who say, well, yes, things are bad, but do you really think that does any good? And my feeling is, well, we brought down a president once, LBJ, by being out in the streets. We brought about some very good changes, and I don't know, things are different now. They feel scarier, but I still think it's important to show up. that ministry of presence. And believe me, everybody doesn't have to be, don't have to be an ordained minister to be able to bring a ministry of presence to any one of many, many situations, whether it's highly personal, whether it's even a happy occasion. Those require witnesses too. So I've told you about some of the most amazing witness experiences in my career. And now I would like to have you go into a little meditative moment. Just close your eyes if that helps you. And see if you can conjure up a moment in your own experience where you feel like your very presence, just your showing up, may have had some kind of impact, how big or how small, on either just another person or persons, or perhaps helped out in actually making some sort of minuscule difference in some way that you might have learned about even years later. Sometimes we don't know till years later the impact that we've made on someone. So just take a few minutes, and then I'm going to ask if you would care to share something with, how about each side of the, we don't need to really change places, but take about 3 minutes to just think about it. And then if you want to share something with somebody close to you, that would be lovely. And maybe it was also someone showing up for you with their presence. So now I would ask you to sort of turn and sort of face each other in whatever way is the least awkward. The 4 of you on this side and the 5 of you on this side, just get a little bit closer. You just don't have to do a lot of moving around, just turn around and just see if anybody has anything to share. I suspect people would. So just, you don't have to be anything spectacular. Just be something that is on your heart. It could be, as I said, you, they're showing up, or someone else showing up, and all of you can get together, the 4 of you. Can be pretty easily, I think. Like, you show up and give me rides. That's great ministry. I can't think of anything better. And we try to show up occasionally for your dad too. I hope you appreciate it.
If you would like to come to a coffee chat, coffee shop. I mean, I'm here in Oxford, but when it's on my side, yeah, you know, I like to go to the. And I went there, and there was Jamie, a woman who I think in the old. She is a pharmacist who works at night.
Genuine thing I've ever said to him.
And is an activist here in daytime. And she was the person.
He wanted some reassurance.
And
That's what I wanted to give him.
sometimes to see her, and I was the only person there, so we had this really just
You would like to try it.
yeah, and she said, well, sometimes a couple people come,
Yeah.
sometimes no.
And we said, wasn't he,
But,
saying goodbye to his spouse,
I thought, oh,
He's never-
I don't know that I would have
no matter what, mother,
because I'm
father,
always
sibling,
thrilled when somebody shows up.
We've all
and
won.
Friday.
So.
But it was such a
Okay,
nice
um,
experience to sit there
I've
and we
written
talked
about
about
it.
both.
I have a memoir.
Which is
down
one of
on
the
this 15th.
projects that I hope and work
All
on. She,
still in the
that's how we
evening,
do her. She
never
came one day.
And I,
When
yeah,
I was doing
talking about
postcards,
experiences that happened to me
probably.
after that.
And, she said she'd come after work and I said, okay, but I'm
Not
not, I had
imagining,
like
but actual things
box
that
that
have
I
been
had
working
outside
with
my
life.
door.
To me,
And she said, well,
that
I'll
were
be
signs and signals that there's continuity in the universe, that it's
That
not a
was,
sprint, it's a marathon.
her, free time, I guess, I thought.
So what about-
Showed up from Tupelo, just to pick up postcards and to show people in Tupelo, right? And now it's Tupelo, you know, well, as was written and all of this. Maybe I guess was there. It was a really nice witness experience that she came to me and I went to her.
And she said, at that moment, I knew that there could be a love for me as a therapist.
Just a visual.
Yeah,
Message.
I mean, you just feel comfortable.
Yeah.
And sometimes you don't know, you try to help out.
That is,
You know, just,
I can really relate to that. I was involved for 26 years.
you know.
And then I just got tired of trying to be somebody I wasn't. And trying to
Accidentally,
please other
you know,
people
I
for
feel like
reasons that they thought were good reasons. And, and so.
in your tutu.
Look up into existence and know
In
that
my
it's
tutu,
all
I have no shame. Love my rainbow
We don't need.
And now I'm at rainbow tights. But, you know, just to
Respect for
that, I
ourselves
feel like.
and others.
Yeah.
It's something as simple as that.
Years ago, before I.
Oh, such moments like
That's not, because I listened to voices that had lots of people, he was saying, I did that once.
Just a visual. I swear to yes. Okay, now it's clear, you know, never for y'all. That's why I see it.
exactly what you're saying. I can really visualize doing it.
But,
Because I was pro-dating, camouflage dating, a very nice show.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Beginning to expect the usual.
I think if you don't.
And actually, I'm actually probably hurting from
Can I get a?
by not being blind.
For
And
cheese.
it's not something that I did
Can you give me a
deliberately.
witness for cheese?
But it was.
They get all these great tastes on
Things
their
my parents could pretty.
Can you bear witness for cheese?
This is who you should be, well, that's not. And so.
I'm sure it's.
You might think it was coincidence, but I'm just staring that in the larger scheme of things, that was meant to happen for you at the right time.
Might kind of start winding down now. If anybody hasn't had a chance to say anything, now's the time, because we need to wind down a bit.
Yes. Way out of the country. I made it down. And we got a call saying, can you grab this? And we went, that's what we couldn't do it. And he said, let's Cheryl. And then we came 2 cars. So Cheryl, the car, Jericho, Church. And so we called her up, and she had a whole stomachs. Yeah, do that. So if the estimate of the files that they find, drivers from home, drive to the farm. And his friend said, hey, you said that. And we ask any person.
Okay, guys, I'm gonna do. You can gather and finish after the service officially ends, folks. But I love that people are sharing. What? Okay, all right, sure, one more minute. I'm gonna wait one more minute.
Yeah. I guess almost inspiration. But he was present for my mother, after my dad died, was important. It was really important to me because I was serving a mission that was helpful to her. So. That's it, yeah. Yeah.
I think you bear witness at Edmund Pettus Bridge on many years.
Oh, yes, that's perfect. That's absolutely, and you bring others to bear witness.
Yeah, I missed that.
No, absolutely.
Yeah, y'all, I would recommend that you go to Selma and do the march.
I know you offer it every year, and
It's
yes,
in March, and it's really, it's powerful.
and that is a great ongoing witness, absolutely. I know a lot of people that have done that.
Y'all can stay with us in our house, which is just
A very generous offer.
6 bedrooms.
Not 6 bedrooms, but plenty of beds.
Oh, yeah.
All right, well, we're all gonna go in this year.
Yeah, no, you should do it. It's very, very powerful.
Everybody I know that has been has said so.
Yeah.
So as we put out the light here, but not the light in our hearts, and the light that we bring to the larger community. Our closing, well, I guess Sarah does the closing words first. It's not my inclination, but we'll do it. These are from James Marshall Bank, and then we'll sing our last hymn. May grace and peace be ours in these troubled and troubling times. Grace and peace that we may ask the questions of ultimate value to our own spiritual journeys and ask them without fear. Grace and peace that we might see the gropings of those around us in their struggle. Grace and peace that with some serenity we might meet the life-negating challenges that come eventually to all, and that we might triumph over them. And we will sing the one thing that we most need to bring to presence at all times. Love will guide us, 131. 131 in the Bray hymnal. 131.
Yeah, can you break it?
Change.
Yes. It's a little bit easier on my 4
Tycho had some finger issues, so we're not going to sing Lean on Us, but Dan will get us through this one also.
We know this one pretty well. I'll do the last 2 bars, we go over the tempo, and then there's no kicking verse, we got extra numbers. All right.
again. I think that we're small enough today that we can go back to the old gathering in a circle, don't you think? We don't get to do that when we have a lot of people here sometimes, but why not?
Closing words? Sure. Closing words are go in peace, live peace, create peace, be peace. We say them together. Go in peace, believe in peace, create peace, be peace.
Blueberry muffins, I don't bring anything but blueberry muffins.
They're so good.
Have you had one?
Doesn't matter.